Hi everyone, it's Richard from Digital Foundry here.
And John here as well.
And today we're taking a look at Gears of War Ultimate Edition running on the PC, which has been quite a controversial release, right John?
It certainly has. It was one of the first DirectX 12 games, but that's kind of a strange situation since it was basically built on 2006 codebase. So it's not necessarily the best test for DX12, but it is interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, it's quite interesting though that there have been quite a lot of performance issues, and in this benchmark that we're looking at here, well, you wouldn't know it because we're getting a straight 1080p 60 here on high settings and ultra textures with a GTX 970, and you would get exactly the same results with an R9 390, but you don't get that in game.
Exactly. This is the issue with the benchmark, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big fan of PC benchmarks. A lot of our benchmarks that we use for GPUs, we actually take direct from gameplay because they are actually more representative of how the game actually plays.
Exactly.
So the problem is, with the Universal Windows platform, VSync is currently enforced, there's nothing you can do with it, so essentially we're looking at a capped 60 FPS, we've got no real idea of the full headroom of the cards.
I think it's possible to exceed that, but only if you have a monitor that goes above 60Hz refresh.
Yeah, that would make sense, yeah. But I think the point is that we're getting no drops from 60 here, and as we segue into the gameplay analysis that we've got here, things get a bit nasty.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so this is the section where we first emerge from the prison. It's quite an action-packed exterior section. And yeah, you can see that 1080p 60 is off the table here. We are getting frame rate drops, and they're kind of different on each card.
Yeah, you can see that AMD kind of has an advantage in some scenes and NVIDIA is coming ahead in others. It's not, but they're not entirely synced, but it's close enough, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but I think it's the case that DX12 at the moment, we just don't really know what the situation is there and how games are supposed to behave and whether one vendor has an advantage over another, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
But yeah, as we move into this second scene here, again, we get dips from the 60 FPS lock that we were looking for, but it's kind of a lot more consistent, and I think it's the case that more enclosed areas tend to have higher performance levels and less variance.
Yeah, that's what I found as well. Most of the game seems to deliver a fairly solid 60 frames per second at least on the 970 that I've been testing.
Yeah.
But there are certainly scenes, as we saw earlier, where it just can't hold steady, and it's a shame that that's not represented in the benchmark.
Yeah. Do we have any idea what's causing that? Has the developer spoken about it at all?
I don't think they've touched so much on those details yet in regards to the PC version, but it does seem to be GPU limited.
Okay, so in this particular clip I'm looking at that trouble spot area again, and we're actually running at medium settings and high, and well, even dropping down to medium settings we still can't hit 1080p 60 on a GTX 970 with much in the way of consistency.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting because I decided to see whether it is actually possible to max out Gears Ultimate on PC using the absolute max possible hardware we've got available, and that is the Core i7 6700K overclocked to 4.6 GHz. We're using 3000 MHz DDR4 RAM, so that's pretty much as high as it's going to go, and Titan X, the fastest GPU on the planet, and we've overclocked that as well by 200 MHz, and the RAM is sitting at about 8 gigabits per second. We actually get, as you would hope, better performance, but even with this extreme power level we're still dropping the odd frame or two. So, we're focusing at 1080p, but the fact is that these GPUs have a lot more to offer, and so here we're repeating the exact same test, but this time at 1440p resolution, and we're getting some pretty decent results here, sort of between 45 to 60 FPS.
It really looks like the Radeon is coming ahead here.
Yeah, I mean, we've noticed that a lot recently in the latest titles, that the Radeon hardware is inching ahead of the GTX 970, which is really fascinating because it wasn't really that way at launch,
right?
Particularly at 1080p, but maybe it's the case that the Radeon architecture found in the consoles is actually finally having an effect in the PC space. But yeah, it's looking pretty good on Radeon, but I think the point here is that the GPU is artificially limiting our kind of frame rate ceiling, so those glitches that we found at 1080p aren't really an issue here because the overall performance level is a lot lower.
Right.
But we are seeing here that we can actually now move the GPUs apart in terms of their overall performance profile. file. So I think in terms of all of the clips I tested, it turned out to be something like 45 FPS versus 49, 50 FPS on the Radeon.
Okay, not bad.
Okay, so our final test is the GTX 980 Ti at 4K, high settings with the 4K textures, which requires full 6 gigabytes of GDDR5 to get the job done there. And this initial section here, we are using the high settings, and it's not too bad at all in terms of the performance level.
Actually, yeah, it looks quite playable for the most part here.
Yeah, and as we move into this second area, you can see that it's still looking pretty good, but we're not in that troublesome external area.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm kind of wondering how it's going to pan out as we move outside. And I actually carried out this test at 2 quality settings, medium and high, but again retaining the 4K textures. So that's going to be quite interesting to see how it holds up.
Yes. Here we go. The escape.
Yeah, the escape. So you can see that the medium at this point is hitting 60 FPS at 4K, which is quite remarkable.
Yes.
I don't expect that to continue as we move outside. Let's go for it and see how we're doing.
We're getting some... It looks good, actually, for the moment here.
It looks pretty good, and we're actually well above 40 FPS on both, which is pretty good going. We're dipping below now. Anyway, that's all we've got for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do like and subscribe if you did. And from me and from John, see you later.
See you later.